Welcome to Supply Chain Now, the voice of global supply chain. Supply Chain Now focuses on the best in the business for our worldwide audience, the people, the technologies, the best practices, and today's critical issues, the challenges and opportunities. Stay tuned to hear from those making global business happen right here on Supply Chain Now.
Hey, good morning. Scott Luton with you here on Supply Chain Now. Welcome to today's show. We got a great show in store. On this episode, we're talking with a former aviation industry leader who's going to be reflecting back on his time in industry. So stay tuned. Work hard to increase your supply chain leadership IQ, especially from an aviation standpoint. A quick program note before we get started here today. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to find us and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts from, so you don't miss conversations just like this one. So again, our featured guest today spent 25 years with Air Canada. He is now retired and loving life, and he's up to some really cool things. So let's welcome in Mr. Peter Bolle. Peter, how you doing?
Well, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Scott. I appreciate it.
It is so neat to finally be able to connect with you after all of our interactions on live streams and social media. And I love Greg and I, the whole team here, loves your passion for business and leadership and, of course, supply chain, because it comes out in all the comments and all your contributions. So it's really rewarding to be able to sit here with you and learn more about your story.
You guys, you put out some great content. There's fantastic learning and information that's being put out. I actually commented on a LinkedIn post today, tagging yourself, Scott, Corinne, a couple guys from Freightways. There's a wealth of information to be had and extrapolated from LinkedIn, and I'm loving it. It's bringing me something to do on a daily basis in retired life.
Well, you've got a lot to bring to the table, and all of the groups beyond ours, I'm sure, are benefiting. And that's exactly what we're going to do today: is pick your brain a bit on an industry that a lot of folks, even folks in supply chain, aren't going to don't know a whole bunch about. I'll be honest. The aviation industry, other than being a big plane nerd, which I am as an Air Force veteran, love aircraft, but all the ins and outs around air cargo and just aviation in general, I look forward to learning. So I got my 17 pages of notes ready. Peter, you ready?
I'm ready. Let's hit it.
All right, let's do it. So before we talk shop, so to speak, let's get to know Peter Bolle a little bit better. So okay. As always, we love to know kind of where you grew up, and you got to give us some of your anecdotes from your upbringing.
Okay, so originally born in Germany, we immigrated to Canada in 1967, landing in the port of Montreal on May 11th. And it was an 11-day ocean voyage. That in of itself, I wasn't barely 4 years old, but I remember some key items, and the majority of them were with my head in the sink or in the bathroom. So enough said there.
How big of a ship was it?
It was a two stacker, so it was a pretty significant ship. But ocean, people equate it to how bad can it be, right? People have gone on cruises; it's nice and flat and calm for the most part. But when you hit an ocean voyage, you're talking 50, 60, 70, 80 foot swells, and you're up, and you're heading back down again. And there's just, to this day, I sit on a sailboat. My buddy has a sailboat in the harbor out in Ile where we live, and we're talking, and just that little movement up and down. I go, okay, dude, I got to take 5. I'm heading to land. I'll be right back. It's not going to end well here.
I've been deep sea fishing, and it wasn't a tiny vessel, but it wasn't anything like a big ocean liner. And I'd heard horror stories about folks getting sick because no one's going. You're not shortcutting the trip. You're out there for the duration. And to your point, I was so worried about getting sick. I'd catch a fish and then go in the cabin and lay down and sleep until it was my turn in the captain's chair again. So
I can believe it. And so when we got to Canada, obviously I don't speak the language. My mom spoke the language because she came here to do a stage at AIRST, which is one of the local laboratories. My dad broke some spoken English. He was actually imported for his trade, was a tool and die maker. I had nothing but the soccer ball my grandmother gave me. So my little leather soccer ball, which I still have today, was my translator.
Oh, that's awesome.
With the local kids, across the street, actually, there were the Holtzmullers. And they were also Germans. So, that worked out well. So my soccer ball is what led me forward. Then we moved over to the West Island in Dollard. Grew up in an awesome community with a townhouse project, 365 units. There's about 1,000 kids that ran around. Swim team, hockey, street hockey, baseball, pickup games. As a youth, it was a great upbringing. And my dad was German, born in the 40s, very strict, different. It's hard to relate to how they had to manage and make their way through life. So, there was one day I said, Dad, I want to go to the drive-in movie with my friends. Oh yeah, no problem. Enjoy your night. I get home at like 11:30 at night. I'm grounded. I said, what happened? What do you mean grounded? How can I be grounded? I went to the movies. Well, you got to be home by 10. Well, the second movie starts at 9. It's impossible to be home by 10. So
So lots of discipline.
Oh
in
yes.
the Bolle household.
Oh yeah, there was good discipline, and rightfully so, right? I watch our youth today, and it's a different dynamic.
Yeah.
Growing up in the 70s, 80s, there were the haves, the wanted to haves and the have-nots. We were somewhere in the middle. You had your one gift at Christmas, and you had your family. Family was big for us. The only other family we had in Canada was my uncle with his son and daughter and his wife. So we had a very, very small knit community. To this day, we have friends that we met upstairs when we were living in our apartment complex. Mr. Policino used to pound his foot on the floor while playing the piano, right? Pound, pound, pound away. My dad be pounding with the broomstick up to the ceiling. One day they met halfway down the stairs, and we're lifelong friends now with the family.
That's wonderful.
We've known them for decades.
So I got to go back to something you shared about the soccer ball and how sports was how you met and communicated with others and built relationships. It was that universal, because sports is that universal bridge, right? It brings so many people together despite the rivalries and all that good stuff. But it really is, that's the beautiful thing about sports, right?
It absolutely is. It teaches you so many lessons in life: how to get along with others, how to lead, how to follow, how to really collaborate with your teammates. And you don't need to know a language to be able to get along with other people playing a sport. Hockey, soccer. I've been coaching soccer now in my community for close to this season will be 26 years. Wow. If we have a season. Right. Well, last year was cut short by COVID.
Well, we all wish that there is a season amongst all kinds of sports. We're big baseball fans around here, and pitchers and catchers. By the time this publishes, it'll be a few weeks later. But spring training is getting started, and we're starting to start to hear about how the different clubs are going to be managing, the games and how many people are going to let in. And we're all looking forward to getting back to as close to normal as we can, where folks can enjoy sports and enjoy each other's company in person, right? As much as we've enjoyed the digital side.
Oh yeah.
But big tip of the hat.
It's hard. Even the Toronto Blue Jays, they're not playing in Toronto because they can't travel across the border.
That's right.
Right. So they're setting up shop across the border. Same for the soccer teams for MLS soccer. The Canadian teams are setting up shop across borders so that they can manage a soccer season. It's really challenging. The logistics of that all is it's off the charts.
The supply chain of sports. There's a whole conversation to be had, whole series to be had there. Big tip of the hat for coaching 26 years. I'm sure the impact you've had on all those players. So we need good people like that donate their time. So thanks for that, Peter, for sure. All right. So kind of switching gears a bit. In a minute, we're going to talk about Air Canada, and we're going to dive deep there. But prior to your time at Air Canada, I understand that you spent 15, 16 years with a wonderful company and team. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, the company at the time, my neighbor, Dan Forget, one summer day knocks on my door. He opened the door. I say, "Hi, Dan, how you doing?" He says, "Great, Peter." He says, "What are you doing this summer?" I said, "I don't know, swim team, soccer, a little bit of football, pick up baseball." He says, No, you're going to come work for me in the warehouse. I said, "Okay." Off to the warehouse I went. I was 16 years old. So I started in the warehouse. It was basically a family-run business. And he very quickly learned, the owner, Mr. Haig, to, I'm going to buy the product. Why don't I manufacture the product? Then I'll buy my own product, resell it, make money on the manufacturing side, make money on the wholesale distribution side. And it was really a glorified a rubber business with rubber fittings, belting, and supplying the mining industry, the construction industry. And yeah, it was great. I spent 16 years there. From the warehouse, went to inventory control, went into procurement, went into accounts payable, went to accounts receivable, went to cost accounting, the catalog development. So I really learned the whole core of that business, which helped me with my entrepreneurial way of thinking today.
So let me ask you, first off, what a wonderful first kind of career stop. I know that 15, 16 years isn't necessarily a stop, but did you, to be trained in all of those different functional areas, was it you asking, or did your friend, what was his name?
Dan Forget.
Okay. Or did Dan say, hey, we're going to teach you all aspects of this business? Who made that happen?
Really, it was Dan. Dan helped me, guided me. Paul Haig, which was one of the local guys, Ray Trombley, who was the VP of sales. And then I also went back to school. So, I did it while I was in the summers, and then life happened. Had to help out at home. So I went back to work full time. So I spent 2.5 years there full time, make sure the roof was in place, make sure food was there. Mom was working hard. And so I went back to John Abbott College, got myself a 3-year diploma in business administration with a finance major. And the day I walked into the office, I said, look, I graduated. Great. Here's your new chair. So that's when I went into the inventory control and provided all the recommendations for purchasing. And then, Dan was a great close family friend. We met them long before I was working or old enough to work. And, he's taken me under his wing and really mentored me and guided me and helped me and gave me the early tools to think independently and not just follow.
Sounds like what a great standard and role model for how other business leaders should approach their teams and the opportunities they should afford them. So what happened to the company? Are they still around?
They are actually. Interestingly enough, this is why it was only a 16-year career, because they got bought, sold, downsized, reshrinked. And then, there was another senior purchasing guy equivalent to my purchasing years, but he had the gray hair. I had the blonde hair. So I went out the door, but the company today is called Amiflex. They're here in Saint Laurent. I almost had an opportunity to start with them early summer, but that unfortunately didn't come to fruition. I was, just having fun, working around. I was always open to a conversation. You never shut your mind to a conversation. It's one of the early tips I was given by people. Listen.
I love that. Okay. So now let's get to the center plate aspect of our conversation, and that's your time at Air Canada.
Awesome.
So let's start with how did you join? Where did Air Canada, no pun intended, hit your radar? How'd that happen?
Okay. So I've had a great love for aviation since I was young. My dad had a machine shop that backed onto the runway at Montreal Trudeau Airport. So I watched planes come in and out and always wonder, wow, how does that even stay in the air? How does it land? Then fast forward 20 years, all of a sudden I lose my job at Associated. I take the fall off, have an interview with Ingrid Young and Jim Duncan and Dave Tuff, even for stores. So I had two opportunities. I had one to go into stores and then one to go into accounts payables.
So this is both these opportunities are with Air Canada. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they were simultaneous. So because I was interviewing, wanted to get in because I thought, God, this is great. I can be with Air Canada. Awesome benefit package, great company, leader in the industry. And again, you can have a varying position on that depending on whatever your situation was, right? But from my standpoint, it's one of the leading airlines in the world. Connecting people to wherever they want to go. And I thought, wow, this is awesome. So I started in supply account. So that's really where my career at Air Canada started, was paying invoices. From running a purchasing organization, inventory control, and inside sales to ticking the invoice box, which was okay. Listen, you got to start somewhere, right?
Right.
And I was not shy to start at the bottom.
Well, is it fair to say, because I know you learned some supply chain finance or manufacturing finance, industry finance in the first company. Did you have to kind of learn how an enterprise the size of Air Canada at the time paid invoices and what those processes were like? That was a big learning curve?
Actually, with the systems that they were putting in, they had just moved from their legacy system, MAP, call it MAP, to a new ERP system called Artos.
Hmm.
So we were actually the test guinea pigs on how is this payment process going to work? So there was a lot of tight communication and coordination with the buyers and the stores and stock keepers that would bring the inventory in, check it, qualify it, load it, and invoice discrepancies. So I always made a point to understand how things work. I just didn't take somebody's word for it. Yeah, it's done this way. And I got a great story on that one we can talk about later. But so I went down to stores. And I said, okay, so I'm Peter. I just started here. Show me what you do down here to help me coordinate my invoice balancing, because I know what the buyers do. I go to see them, clear it. So I was very proud of the fact that I never had a snag, meaning an invoice held up for longer than a day or two.
Sounds like you really, critical thinking. You really, you aren't going to just follow instructions. You're going to really understand it and look for opportunities. Let me ask, so I think it's helpful context what you shared with me pre-show for our listeners. Air Canada at the time, I think this is, if my time frame's right, is this the 90s, early 90s maybe, when you joined Air Canada?
January 30th, 1995 was the day my career began.
All right, perfect. So 1995, in rough terms, you're talking about passengers and number of associates. How big was Air Canada when you joined them?
Okay, so that was our pre-Air Canada merger days. So we're roughly around 24,000 people at that time. In 99, 2000, we merged with Canadian, which bolstered the headcount to well into the 30s. You talk in today's terms, COVID terms, sadly, there's been a significant reduction in the workforce, where it's probably under 10,000 people. We're probably only flying maybe 10%. And you'll notice I keep saying the word we.
Sure.
It's hard to get that company out of my blood, because I bled Air Canada. I fought for Air Canada. I worked hard for Air Canada, and it's still part of my makeup. So it's, we're probably down to maybe 10, 15,000 passengers a day flown. And you still have that big cost bucket of aircraft and facilities. And, yes, we've shrunk, they have shrunk the labor component.
Right.
But the big cost bucket is an aircraft. That's
right.
Several $100 million. And we're taking delivery of new ones.
So on a much lighter note, let's talk about how your career evolved. So you started paying invoices.
Yes, sir.
Walk us through some of your, your favorite and your critical positions from there.
So from payment invoices, Ingrid saw that she was my hiring manager. She saw that I had more potential than just ticking a box on paying invoices, sent me to Toronto to clean up a mess in Toronto, where I met Bruce Bodley, my next phase of leadership within Air Canada. And I was in the office in Toronto at about 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. I heard a voice, so I yelled out, "Who's that?" And he goes, "Bodley, who's that?" I went, "Peter?" It's just me, don't worry. My heart's now palpitating a little. And he goes, so we just got into a general conversation. And he says, "Well, yeah, what are you doing here?" I said, "Well, Ingrid Young sent me." "Oh, I know Ingrid sent me here to clean up the invoicing backlog." So I gave him a bit of my brief history. I just started this like 3 months after I'd started Air Canada. And he goes, "What are you doing paying the invoices?" I said, "Well, there's no other positions open right now." And as luck may have it, they were just moved some people out of the buying positions to support a program that we were managing for Northwest, converting a bunch of Alitalia aircraft into the Northwest configuration, basically gutting them, rebuilding them, recertifying, and then off to the races. They went back flying for Northwest. They were actually DC-9s. So he goes, "Oh no, sit tight. I'll have a position for you shortly." Wow. A few weeks later, I'm a material assistant. That was the classification at the time, basically a buyer, for class 40 ground support supplies, electrical, hazardous material and such.
So clearly your skills were speaking for you. It was building your reputation, where folks were trying to recruit you and get you on their team or within their department of the company, huh?
Yeah, so to speak. Yeah, for sure.
So so after that buyer role, where'd you go next?
Well, then we went into really strategic procurement. I've been in the strategic sourcing, strategic procurement side of Air Canada since since the Canadian, just prior to the Air Canada Canadian merger in 99, 2000, which really is where we evolved into a category management type procurement model from a siloed procurement model, meaning we had buyers in Montreal, Toronto, Winnipeg, Vancouver, Calgary. They were buying their product, the exact same number 40 cobalt drill from possibly 4 different sources. You know, it leads back to the conversation that you all had a couple of weeks back on the bucket. Well, I call this a bucket, you call it a pail. Right. So, you know, it was a great conversation, that one, because it's like hitting me in the head. I'm going, yeah, I know what that's all about. You know, I know.
Where's the soccer ball when we need to bridge these conversations together, right?
Exactly.
Sorry,
go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask, so we got to do Kelly Barner proud, dial P for procurement. So if anyone listening, y'all, and you love procurement, be sure to check out that series. But so Peter, there's 2 things I want to ask you about. You mentioned procurement and sourcing, and there's lots of different views on, you know, comparing and contrasting those 2 words and roles and functions. What's Peter Bolle? How do you compare and contrast procurement and sourcing?
So, you know, procurement can be categorized simply as the act of buying the product. Sourcing can be categorized as, I go to the gentleman or lady that do the act of buying the product and say, what are your major pain points with your suppliers, your supply chain, your product? Is there delivery? Is you got the right quantities, right time? Can we pool those needs and issue an RFP to market and then do a sourcing event and then take it all under contract? Because that's really what our strategic team does. We work in the category, we go to market to however number of suppliers that we need, and then come back and bring the recommendations internally, do the contract, load it up into the system, and then procurement or buyers continue the process. It was one of the big initiatives that we started with Aero Exchange. Air Canada and a couple other suppliers created a company in Dallas called Aero Exchange that Al Kozrak, brilliant man, runs today. It just hit 20-year anniversary. So it was coincided very close to when strategic procurement came in play. And that was the whole drive of that. And airlines have massive cash burdens on inventory. Right. Everybody's carries units, the same product, right? So it gave us a mechanism to connect all the airlines to all of our suppliers and see what supply is out there within the airlines' cost buckets that they could lend, borrow, repair, or purchase.
So thank you for walking me through that and our listeners. I think the second question, you're speaking to it already, and that is kind of how the procurement profession has really become much more strategic in recent years for organizations that get it and will enable that to happen, right? And take advantage of it, right?
I agree, fully agree.
Yeah, speak to that for a second.
So, you know, it was interesting. I actually had a side conversation with Kelly just the other day because she had put up a post, you know, category management, is it going away? Yes or no? And I'm like, oh my God, if somebody wants to throw category management in the garbage, I don't think they fully understand how to create value or bring benefit into the category of spend. You know, there's IT, there's marketing, there's maintenance for an airline standpoint, there's supply chain. You know, supply chain is a category in itself. Trucking, cold chain. We have caterers that supply our food, put it on the aircraft at every single airport that we fly into. Now within Canada, we had to develop, and we had a cold chain set up that I just finished doing an RFP on about 2 years ago, had selected a new service provider to work through that. And they're still in the contracting process with that service provider. So I can't speak to the name of that service, but they absolutely did a spectacular job consolidating 15 of my suppliers into one distribution outlet, put it on a truck, and then send it just in time, really, because we only hold 2 days of inventory at airport locations to get it there for the next day's flights. So it's complicated, intricate, yet has to flow seamlessly, and nobody's aware of it.
Yeah, I love that. What a great example. We're gonna have to get you and Kelly together, maybe on a live stream. I bet we could have a fascinating conversation.
It would be.
Really quick, before we continue on with your career at Air Canada, you've got a model right behind you. Why don't you, for folks that might be watching it, what aircraft is that?
That's the Dreamliner, Boeing 787.
Beautiful.
The latest beauty in the fleet.
All right. So as we start to wind down your career at Air Canada, what were some of your final roles there before you retired?
Well, again, it was the strategic procurement. I moved into I purchased most of the categories. So the only thing, for the easiest way for me to say what I maybe not have purchased, is fuel for an aircraft, a brand new aircraft, labor agreements, and major IT.
Who did that?
We had separate. We have a team within our strategic procurement team that manages the IT needs. So there was a separate CIO that headed up the IT. We have it's now the vice president of aircraft programs and leasing, which is Luc Pichet, who was my previous senior director.
Gotcha.
He now manages the aircraft procurement, and then there's a team within strategic that manages all of the fuel procurement.
Wonderful.
Years ago, we did Project XM. Airlines, and this leads to changes within airlines that you just see a new paint scheme, right? But inside the cabin, there's new seats, new in-flight entertainment, new power, new carpets, new wall laminates,
Across the
certification
fleet.
across the entire fleet.
Right.
I went to a company to move 300 container loads of ocean shipments for all my seating products that were coming from Ireland and the UK. And then Traffic Tech did an unbelievable job coordinating 300 container loads of product.
Really?
It was brilliant. Yeah.
Well, so you mentioned fuel earlier. Whenever I hear aviation and fuel, it always makes me think about, do you remember about 10 years ago, and they may still be in the business. I haven't done my homework lately, but Delta announced it's getting into the oil refinery business because of fuel concerns and kind of where we're headed and the price points. And they acquired refineries, an aviation company. It was so fascinating and a big, bold, disruptive move on a big scale.
For sure, it was.
Yeah, I wonder if they still are involved.
I think they may have probably very quickly discovered that moving people safely from point A to B is where their key business should lie.
Right.
Being in the fuel industry and fuel manufacturing and refining, I leave that to the professionals.
There we go. All right. So now let's talk about as you retired. What year did you retire from Air Canada?
Last May 1st, 2020 was my retirement date.
Well, first off, congratulations. Despite the challenges of the industry that you alluded to earlier, and the challenges, of course, that Air Canada has experienced. I mean, over 25 years of clearly being a big part of the family and being passionate about what you do day in and day out for a company like that. A huge tip of the hat to you. Who, as you reflect back on those over 25 years, and I want to say 4 months. I have that right? Close?
Yeah, right about there. Exactly.
Okay. I don't want to shortchange anybody.
No, it's okay. 25 years is good. That's a huge milestone in the airline industry.
It is, or I would argue in any industry.
Yeah.
So you've already mentioned some of your colleagues and some of your leadership team members, but who's maybe one or two folks you haven't mentioned yet that you really it was a pleasure to work with or work beside or collaborate with?
There's some that'll love him, hate him, but Gordon Young is into the details of everything that has to happen in a project. So he was a very integral part of the project management team on Project XM, which was coordinating all the products, all the materials. And we would have some really good spirited discussions, and we learned very early on how to really work well together and bounce off each other.
Yep.
And that was to do it in his office, not during the meeting. We had the one really challenging meeting, and I said, at one point I stopped answering the questions, and I said, Gordon, how about we pick this up in your office? And we had a good laugh after that. It was brilliant.
You illustrate a really important point, and we just, Amanda, my dear wife, and I just finished rewatching The Sopranos. It's been years since we'd watched them.
Yeah.
And as we would knock out work each night, we've got that playing in the background after the kids have gone to bed, for sure.
I think so, eh?
But what's interesting, there's always business takeaways in anything. But if you remember, anytime Tony Soprano, as they're in their organized crime meetings.
Yeah.
When the bosses who always had to position themselves, right, and always, as they're negotiating, there was a key moment when Tony would always say, "Hey, let's go talk a second," when there was a disagreement and they didn't want to air it out in a meeting. And
Yeah.
that's in those one-on-one sidebars where they got through some of the big breakthroughs, even if it was a bad deal. At the end of the day,
Yeah.
still,
Yeah.
those private sidebar conversations that you're alluding to can be really powerful, right?
They totally are, because now you can actually speak very openly and frankly, and that's really how I would characterize myself, and my suppliers would characterize me that the same way. Tough, hard, fair.
Look, tough, hard, and fair. I love that. And Gordon Young was some you look back on having some spirited discussions, as you put it, right?
And we're still in contact today. For me, building relationships for me is the most important, really the most important skill that you can have as a person. Every year for the last 15 years, or longer maybe now, I don't know when I hit the first send button, I sucked everybody out of my contact list. I put them in the BCC. I said, it's a holiday message from Peter Bolle, manager at Air Canada. And I send out my thoughts and reflections of the year. And each year, it changes, and it gave me pause to think about, okay, so what happened this year that I was grateful for? Oh, my daughter was born, or a grandson was born, or a granddaughter was born. What do I need to reflect on? What losses did I have this year? How is that going to affect me? One of my first bosses, Bert Walzer, passed away from cancer. It's quite some time ago. A great colleague from a supplier that I was on the phone with every single day for 30 minutes as he drove into work, as I sat at my desk, say, okay, so what challenges do we have today? What do we need to overcome? What did we do well yesterday? What do we need to work on? And what's in the bucket for next week? We talked every single day. He was 52 years old, passed away of cancer. Wow. So, sorry, try not to get emotional, but these are the things that impact you as a person. You need to understand how you're going to deal with them. And I would share them with my contacts. And I always got back some really, really powerful messages. So I could, so I've built and nurtured those relationships where there was no response. Often it was no longer with the company, the email's no good. But relationship, I've commented in your streams, relationship matters.
Right.
Matter.
Yeah. I love that as words to live by, for sure. All right. So moving right along, what's one thing that folks, whether they're in supply chain or regardless of what sector or industry that they're in, what's one thing that they need to know about the aviation industry?
It's complex. It is really complex. We as passengers, we get up 3 hours before a flight, get in our car, cab, bus, train, get to the airport, check through, drop our luggage. Boop, we sit in the waiting room, right? We get on a plane, we go from point A to B, get off, and life is done.
Right.
That same flight, the pilots are there hour and a half, 2 hours beforehand, pre-flight, trying to a transatlantic, trans-Pacific flight. They're trying to book lanes to understand where they're going to fly. You've got catering, you have galley preparation, you have refueling, you have de-icing possibly in the colder regions. You have the whole airport machine working, right? Oh, we're moving the gate. The plane's no longer going to be at gate 1. It's going to gate 5. Make sure we get the announcement out. Move the gate setups if you have to move the gate setups to another gate. It's a complex machine. From a supply chain, we talked about it a little bit earlier. Just our food supply chain is a spider web of trucks. I have one truck hitting the road every day going to Vancouver. So there's 3 trucks on the road to Vancouver while the first one is arriving. It's incredible. Yeah,
it really is. It is incredible. It's a orchestrated symphony that, I mean, just the sheer alignment across all those things you just described. And it's nailed so well that to your point, most passengers they don't show up. It's like clockwork, and it's just all taken for granted.
Yeah.
But
there's actually a good documentary. I don't know how to find it. Maybe I'll try to look and Google up the link, but it's the day in a flight from Montreal to Frankfurt.
Oh, you got to look that up.
It was on TV like years and years ago. I've watched it a few times, and it does bring a little bit more to light.
Yeah. You got to share that. We watched here, my family watched a PBS series. I think it's like a 4 or 5 installment, all about airports and air travel, and including, some of the things behind the scenes, but also the improvements. Of course, Atlanta,
Yeah.
Hartsfield Jackson International is here, and it's fascinating. It is absolutely
I've
fascinating.
flown in and out of there. I've flown in and out of Atlanta, and it's when you'd have to take the train from one end to another end. It's like, okay, how big is this joint?
Seriously. I'm going to tell myself a little bit, but my family would take us as vacation when I was kids to the airport, just because it was so intriguing. It's so foreign for us, but it is really impressive. All right. One of our favorite questions here, Supply Chain Now, is to talk about Eureka moments, right? We've had no shortage of them through a year like 2020 and into 2021. But whether it's a recent one or one through some of this journey you've already shared, what was a critical Eureka moment for you?
And this one actually, it's not even a work-related Eureka moment. This was from my childhood when we used to travel constantly back and forth to Germany. Every summer we used to spend summers in Germany, lived with my grandmother, with the aunts, the uncles. My cousin and I, his name is Peter as well. We're walking down the street and, we're talking, not minding our own business and moving along our way. We get home and my grandmother's standing in the doorway, and she always had a smile on her face for the most part. They went through some tough times out there taking care of the family. And she looks at us too. Frau Hilde has called. Yes. How is Frau Hilde? She says you didn't wave hello.
Wow.
When did that happen? Well, you would walk right by her. I said, I don't walk by anybody. She goes, no, she was on the other side of the street. So the lesson was, walk with your head up, pay attention to your environment, and always extend a hand in a hello and a greeting. There's nothing better than a hi, hello with a genuine smile. And if you ask the question, how are you? Be prepared to engage.
I love that.
So to me, that was taught to me at 9-10 years old by my grandmother.
Well, so this is the first time that you and I are pseudo meeting. We're still remote, obviously, but it's so funny that you shared that Eureka moment, because I can see that play out in how you approach your social media relationships and the conversations you're part of. Genuine is the word you use, and you have it in spades. So clearly that moment early in your life with your grandmother stuck with you, as you said, even into today. So I admire that.
Yeah, for sure. And a work-related Eureka moment is, you craft a clearly designed specification, a requirement. The internal customer delivers that to you. You evaluate, you talk them about them. So you ask your 5 whys. Why this, why that, why? You have that all clear in your mind. You bundle it, you send out the RFP, you negotiate exactly and some of what they wish. And then a month later go, well, you should have known it was too good to be true. I'm like, yeah, but this is what you wanted. Right. I give you exactly what you wanted. So it doesn't matter. The true Eureka moment is be true to yourself, be true to your craft, be true to your customer. And what happens down the road is out of your control. Focus on what's within your control. The rest, it simply doesn't matter.
Love that, Peter. A lot of good stuff here. So let's talk about the kind of the path ahead. So you're involved in a shortage of things. Before we talk about Promolink, I think it's called. Let's talk about your acting. Some folks may not know about your acting. So Peter, tell us about that.
A few years back, my first movie was Pawn Sacrifice with Liev Schreiber and Tobey Maguire. It's the Bobby Fischer story with Spassky in the Olympics. So a friend of mine says, they're looking for somebody. You mind if I have my agent call you? I said, yeah, sure. So the agent calls me. She says, I'm looking at your picture. And again, the COVID hair doesn't quite demonstrate it. It's usually was always a little bit tighter, a little bit Dolph Lundgren type. She goes, I think you would make a good tournament official. I said, you want Russian tournament official? Yes, I can do that for you. She goes, enough said, you don't need to speak. So, I got a part. I'm the Russian tournament official. But what's fascinating, and I love movies. I enjoy movies. You know, my favorite movie, Forrest Gump.
Yes.
Life is
Oh,
like a
yes.
box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. I love Tom Hanks. I love that movie. And from the outside, you know, you enjoy, you appreciate, you learn, you maybe pick up a couple lessons in a movie. And this is why I like Gump so much, is because there are so many lessons and learnings in that movie to take away from.
Yep.
But to watch it actually filmed, you know, we were probably filming in the movie itself, it's probably a 3-4 minute sequence within the movie of Bobby Fischer doing some chess moves. My hand is actually captured in a close-up, crumpling up some paper. But that took 12 hours to film.
Wow.
From the front, it's all points of the compass. They got to move the camera angle, tear down the set, rebuild the set. It is unbelievable to watch and to be part of. So I've done a few other things in the interim. You know, I did a Christmas special. I was on a TV show. All fun. It's interesting seeing the back end of it, and you understand why it takes 2 years to bring out a movie.
Amazing. It really is. It's a craft. We talk about supply chain being a craft, but you know, making movies and that attention to detail and chasing the passion and the vision you have for a certain scene or certain exchange. It's amazing. So, and I appreciate you sharing your experiences there. And hey, if we ever need a tough judge, you're gonna be the first person we call. So let's talk
That
about.
would be great.
Let's talk about Promolink. So tell me about what this venture is and your role and why is it important?
Yeah. So interestingly enough, so a couple of weeks ago, a lifelong friend of mine, Sharky Tracking, calls me up. He says, Pete, I have no bandwidth to work on something. I need your help, guidance, direction. So I'm always open to sharing experiences, helping, putting connections together, pulling people together. So I said, sure, you know, pass it by me. If I can help you, guide you, direct you, and see how you can make this work, I'd gladly to help you out, man. You know, he's such a great person, gives of himself into the community, into you know, the palliative care center for the West Island, donates tons of money. So of course I'm going to help you, Sharky. What is it? So he flips me this product brief, and I'm like, oh wow, this is amazing. This is good. This is going to change hand sanitizing around the world. Everybody has to buy this hand sanitizer. Little buckets, batteries, throwaways, all kinds of issues around that hand sanitizer. It's
Right.
empty most times. This is a brand new unit that you can now sell advertising on. So
Wow.
it takes the cost bucket of hand sanitization, moves it into the revenue bucket for airlines, for retailers, for convention centers. Take a convention center, right? You have the Atlanta Convention Center. You got 4,000 guys, exhibitors coming in. They're all going to need a little squirt in the hand, clean up, sanitize the fingers before they hit the booth, right?
Right.
Now you can promote your product before the people get to the booth on the sanitizer, dripless. The product is unbelievable. And it's brand new, 3 months, 4 months in the market. Gotta love it.
And it's here to stay, you know.
Yeah.
Hand sanitizer, it's not new. It's been around for a while, and folks have been passionate about it for a while, but now it's off the charts. It's just like all the other shortages we've seen. It's part of life now in a very meaningful.
Yeah. I'll flip
way.
you the link for Promolink, so you got the website as well. The product is called Extra Safe. So let's all have a good day and be extra safe.
All right. So let's as we start to wind things down.
Yes, sir.
You know, a lot of feedback we've gotten as we sit on these one-on-one interviews, and especially in the last 18 months or so, it's routines that have been changing, regardless of what chapter life you're in. I mean, it has as much to do about that as it does around the pandemic environment that we were just talking about. How have any of Peter Bolle's routines changed here lately?
That's a great question. So, you know, my fiance and I bought a new house, moved into it December 2019. So her two daughters, my daughter, myself, her, obviously, into the new home. They moved 30 kilometers out of the city where they grew up and enjoyed their entire youth. So already, as they said, you're bringing me to Narnia. You know, we're now going to live in Narnia. So I said, you're going to grow to love Narnia. Like, you know, they went through that closet. They loved Narnia. So we're thinking, you know, great, good start. Can't wait till summer. COVID, boom. Have to think about retiring because the job market's shrinking at Air Canada. Elect to retire. Do I got enough? Am I going to have enough? You know, we had plans. I had to build a shed, put in a pool. I cut in 3 new gardens. So kept myself busy, played a lot of golf. I love to golf, you know, so kept ourselves busy, but the family now is all hunkered down because in Quebec, and it's different, they're the different provinces in Canada, but we all had different regulations, different lockdowns, different shutdowns. You know, we're under curfew right now. I have to be in my house at 8 o'clock at night until 5 o'clock in the morning. There's no, unless you got to walk the dog. Movie theaters are just opening up. Restaurants are still shuttered since October. Like it's fascinating, and everybody has to support everybody. So I went to my local guy he has his own restaurant, Balneo in Il Perot, and I bought gift certificates. So I bought a whole whack of $25 gift certificates, handed them out to my neighbors, you know, as a thanks. It's been a great summer. Everybody, you know, we didn't get to really spend time because we're looking forward to meeting. We have some great neighbors.
Right.
Never got to meet them except for across the fence. So I handed those things out. You know, the Alumni Foundation that I'm president of, we hold an annual golf tournament. That's our one key fundraiser. We do about $12,000 a year fundraising that goes to the Otis Grant and Friends Foundation and with the Lindsay Place Alumni Foundation. Couldn't do that. So many adjustments. And that's really where you just need to say, you know, as my mom said, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be.
Right.
It's not in your control. Don't worry about it.
All right. So final question before we make sure folks know how to get in touch with you. You just mentioned that, was it Lindsay Place Foundation?
Yeah, Lindsay Place High School Alumni
okay.
Foundation. Alumni Foundation. Yeah. We set that up in 2005 following our reunion, 25th reunion. So we started sponsoring awards and whatnot.
And is that used to support the current students there, or more about the alumni?
Yeah, no, it's the alumni. Basically, it's a fundraising effort, and we currently sponsor 3 bursaries for $400 a piece. You know, the school needed new updated backboards, basketball nets. So, you know, the school to buy them was $16,000. Principal came to us, said, "Do you think you can shop fab these?" Because my Pete Noth, who owns Noth Industries, he's an engineer, a designer, well, quasi-engineer. He designs and invents. So he basically reverse engineered the basketball nets. We bought the plexiglass, made the frames, got them powder coated, put our name on it, and hung them in the gym. Sadly, the school is going to close this year. It's politics. Like that's a whole other 3-hour discussion. And I'm not going to get there, but
well, I love any of those hammer meet nail opportunities to serve others. And it sounds like even if the school is closing, you heard about a need and y'all made it happen. So I love that. All right. So let's make sure you're a wonderful interview, a great conversationalist. You've been there, done that. I love your sense of humor. I imagine you're gonna have a few folks that want to connect with you. How can folks connect with Peter Bolle?
Best way is LinkedIn. I'm on that. It's on my phone. It's on the laptop. Reach out, say hi, hello. You know, I engage, I discuss. You know, I ignore the guys that Nerf takes on with the Bitcoin conversations, but no, you know, and I've met some fantastic people since watching your live streams. Engage in the stream, and I've met great people out of it.
Yeah, the people, the comments, the camaraderie, the kindred spirits, the intellect, and the insights you gain. I mean, all of that. It's really become my favorite part, that live stream interaction with all these wonderful people. So I appreciate what you do to help drive that and help make it engaging. And I love that we had an opportunity to take a deeper dive behind your journey and learn more. So we'll have to do it again soon, Peter.
I look forward to it. Thank you so much for the opportunity. You guys, Amanda, Clay, Greg, the whole clan is just awesome content. I can't scream it loud enough from the mountain.
Well, thank you
and
so much.
And congrats, Clay, on the promotion. Well done.
Yes. Oh man, he's gonna get a kick out of that. But we've been talking with Peter Bolle, again, a 25-year veteran of Air Canada. He's retired, although he's very active retiree, and loving life. And so y'all keep your finger on the pulse of and your eye out for Promolink. We'll try to get a link in the show notes for that. But Peter, all the best. We look forward to reconnecting again real soon.
Thank you. Take care. Have a good day.
You bet. All right. So to our audience, hopefully you've enjoyed this conversation as much as I have. We've been working on nailing this down for quite some time, and it's really rewarding to sit down with Peter Bolle. But hey, connect with him on LinkedIn for sure. And if you like conversations like this, make sure you venture over to supplychainnow.com. New website getting rolled out in March. You'll be able to search for things at your fingertips in a way that we hadn't been able to do for a couple of years now. But we'll have lots of conversations just like this one. Maybe not just like this one, but lots of smart people, lots of entertaining guests. So y'all look for that. On behalf of our entire team here at Supply Chain Now, Scott Luton said, hey, challenging you to do good, give forward, be the change that's needed. And on that note, we'll see you next time here on Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for being a part of our Supply Chain Now community. Check out all of our programming at supplychainnow.com and make sure you subscribe to Supply Chain Now anywhere you listen to podcasts. And follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. See you next time on Supply Chain Now.